رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على نبينا حبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا بالقاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We are tonight remembering one of our young men who died in Mombasa some nearly 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago. And together with him all the Mu'mineen who died recently, including the young man who passed away a few days ago in Glasgow and was buried today in a tragic incident. And since we are on that subject, there are certain very important observations which Islam has made about life and death, which will be the beginning of the subject, which inshallah we will deal with then in the future. The first and the foremost is that you and I, and whoever we distinguish as a person, is not what his body is. When I say you, ordinarily I mean you as a body, but actually it is not the body I mean. When I say I, seemingly it means I as a person sitting before you in this physical existence, but that is not the meaning of the word I. Islam says that there was a creation for which there was a need of a body. I wanted to create, and for that creation there was a need for a container, a body, which would act and also show the effect, which will be having the possibility of making a display. That means that which I wanted to create could have existed without the body, but if it existed without the body, you would not have been able to see the effects. And there would have been no amal. The manifestation of act and the result of an effect can only be seen when there is a body. If you laugh or smile when you are pleased, or if you frown when you are in pain or distress, seemingly it is the body which is suffering, but it is not the body which is suffering, it is you within the body who is suffering. The pleasure of whatever physical or mental form it may be experienced by you. The body has just acted as a vehicle. The proof of this argument is death itself. An alim mujtahid a'lam maybe, or even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. But let us take an example of an alim rather than take the example of the Prophet himself. Say a mujtahid died. Now when his dead body is there is no difference between him and a jahil. There is no difference between him in that state and an illiterate person. There is no difference whatsoever. In that state of death, there is no difference between him and one jahil, because the alim who was there has gone. But when you kissed his hand, You displayed your affection to the body, through the body to him who resides in the body. It's a very important thing to understand that your body and my body is just like a nest in which there is a bird. You are talking of the bird, not of the nest. One day the bird will fly off. The nest will remain, gradually disintegrate and disappear. What we are talking about is the existence of the bird itself. When the Prophet said this for the first time, that there is going to be, and there is, a living entity and existence which is man and not the body, they found it quite revolting. Surah Saba. In Surah Saba, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَقَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا هَلْ أَدَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى مَنْ يُنَبِّئُكُمْ إِذَا مُزِّقْتُمْ كُلَّ مُمَزَّقٍ إِنَّكُمْ لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. The people who disbelieved our Prophet, they used to say among themselves, may we show you a man, هَلْ نَدُلُّكُمْ عَلَى رَجُلٍ, may we show you a person, يُنَبِّئُكُمْ إِذَا مُزِّقْتُمْ كُلَّ مُمَزَّقٍ, when you will be torn apart, totally disintegrated, إِنَّكُمْ لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ, you will be born again. Quran does not deny this, that when we get into the grave after death, we will be torn apart and disintegrated totally. Disintegration and decay takes place within 3 days. And within some time later on, there may not be even a shred of that man in that. Not even the bone, not even the powder. Dust to dust. Muzziqtum. Mazzaqa means tearing apart. Cheerna, pardna. Muzziqtum kulla mumazzaq. That means when it will be torn apart, totally disintegrated. Nothing will remain. He says we'll be born again. There's an ayah again in Quran Majid. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. وَقَالُوا إِذَا ظَلَلْنَا فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّا لَفِي خَلْقٍ جَدِيدٍ. When we be totally lost in the earth, are we going to be born again? بَلْ هُمْ فِي شَكٍّ بَلْ هُمْ بِلِقَاءِ رَبِّهِمْ كَافِرُونَ. These are the people who have no belief in meeting their Lord on the Day of Judgment. The answer Allah gives is very beautiful. قُلْ يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ الَّذِي وُكِّلَ بِكُمْ. You will be taken away full by the angel of death who has been ordained to act on you. Now, who is kum? يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ. You will be taken away. My body is not taken by Malakul Maut. My body is instead more, where people are waiting for ghusl to be given, kafan to be given, dafn to be made. Malakul Maut is not seen anywhere. Allah says, يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ Malakul Maut. Malakul Maut takes you away. That is your ruh and nafs, which is you, gone. The rest is the body. It may decay, it may go dust to dust. That was given for the purpose. We want you. Your ruh and your jism is something else. يَتَوَفَّاكُمْ مَلَكُ الْمَوْتِ الَّذِي وُكِّلَ بِكُمْ ثُمَّ إِلَيْنَا تُرْجَعُونَ. What will come back to us is not your body, is you. And then he explains, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfusa hina mawtiha wallati lam tamut fi manamiha. He takes full control of the human spirit and soul when death occurs. And if death does not occur in the sleep, also we are in his control. فَيُمْسِكُ الَّذِي قَضَى عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتِ. already ordained that this is death. He holds back your soul. وَيُرْسِلُ الْأُخْرَى, and the rest comes back as we wake up. إِلَىٰ أَجَلٍ مُسَمَّى, for a time which has been given. 60 years, 70 years, 90 years, one day you will die. Till such time, when you have been given lease of life, you go back and he releases you again. You go back and he releases you again. The day he decides there is no release, that is death. That is anfus. That is the meaning of human being, man or woman. The body, all its splendor, all its strength, all its beauty is just a vehicle. You are not in this body, my friends. We don't value man because of the body. We value man because of that which resides in the body. If you understand this philosophy of Islam, on the day of judgment, because Abu Ali Sina and many other philosophers have said this, that this body will disintegrate. It is this body which took pleasure. It is this body which committed the sin. And once it goes into dust on the day of judgment, even if Allah makes it all over again, it will not be the same body. It will be a new body. And how can a new body, and why should a new body sustain the injuries for that body which committed the sin? The answer is that we are not talking about the body, Baba. We are talking about that nafs and ruh, which will remain till the day of judgment. Talking about the body. And that is why, for how long you lived is not important. What type of life you lived is important. When the Sharif Radi died, Sharif Radi is the compiler of Nahjul Balagha. Nahjul Balagha is famous. Nahjul Balagha is a compilation of the sermons of Imam Ali, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi. It was compiled by Sharif Radi in 4th Hijrah. And he died at the age of 40. Sharif Radi died very young. He had elder brother called Sayyid Murtada Alamul Huda, who of course lived for very long, lived till 88. But when Sayyid Murtada died, Sayyid Sharif Radi died, the compiler of Nahjul Balagha, Sayyid Murtada, because of his love for his brother and because of the shock he had sustained, could not come on his janazah and could not even read namaz-e-mayyit. He assigned somebody for him to stand there. This is human. But there is a marthiyah which has become a part of literature, Arabic literature. A marthiyah written by Sayyid Murtada for his brother. Marthiyah, as we say marthiyah. وَكَمْ مِنْ عُمُرٍ قَصِيرٍ طَاهِرٍ خَيْرٍ مِّنْ عُمُرٍ طَالَ بِالْأَدْنَاسِ. How many small lives and very young lives, but pure and sincere, are better than long lives full of wickedness and wretchedness. وَكَمْ مِنْ عُمُرٍ قَصِيرٍ طَاهِرٍ خَيْرٍ مِّنْ عُمُرٍ طَالَ بِالْأَدْنَاسِ. You have lived very, very small life, very young life. When a man wants to live, after all, what is the criteria? All of us live. All of us live. But the only difference is, my friends, one lives solely for oneself. One lives oneself and also for the others. When one lives for the others, sometimes even at the expense of one's own comfort, goes to serve, to do some service for others, that man has truly lived. A young man like, say, for example, remember Shaukat, a man who was so sympathetic to people, community and outside the community. They remember him for his services, for the way he went out of his way to serve. That is the reason why he is remembered today. That people remember him as a young man, spirited young man, religious young man, at the same time full of spirit to serve. He lived for 42, but he left behind a mark. وَكَمْ مِنْ عُمُرٍ قَصِيرٍ طَاهِرٍ. So, this is what it is. Now, the moment that life here is over, Islam says the life continues. But this time it continues in a new body. They call it astral body. When you dream, you are there in your bed, but you are in America in your dream, and you are in Toronto, you are visiting Niagara. You see, some of us are in Makkah, Medina, some in Karbala and Najaf. Well, you are there. The existence which is beyond the body. Remember, an existence which is beyond the body knows no distance and knows no space or time. It goes. The moment I come out of this body, after my death, that ruh which is now accompanying me and containing me is an astral body which knows no distance and no space or time restriction. Allama Dastaghaib has written this in his book. It has been translated in many languages. He says one alim died. At the time of, when he was on his deathbed, he called his son and said, I have a hawala. Hawala means somebody has referred, given reference, of 20,000 rupees to be taken from so and so to build a mosque at this particular village. I am taken ill. You give this hawala to the trader, take the money from him and build the mosque. But before he could specify where the hawala was, he died. The son was worried, and he asked all his father's friends, there is any hawala anywhere. They said, we haven't received any hawala. On one night when he slept, he saw his father in the dream. And the first question his father asked him was, what happened to the hawala and what happened to the mosque? He said, Father, where is the hawala? We haven't been able to trace it. He said, it is behind the cupboard. It has fallen down. The paper has fallen down. Go into my room behind the cupboard and you will see there the hawala is there. Go and take the money and build the mosque, for that is the amanat and I am responsible for it. And he went there, and behind the cupboard he saw the hawala. He gave it and the mosque was built. It means that there is a world after the grave, before Qiyamah, which has got connection with me and you. And that is the ruh connection, with the connection of the true person with me. What we become is very important. How often have we heard that Imam Ja'far Sadiq salawatullah wa salamu alayhi was in Hajj, and someone said, Ya ibn Rasulillah, ma akthar al-hajij. Ya ibn Rasulillah, see how many Hajis are there? In millions. He wanted to impress upon Imam that so many Muslims have come. Haji. That Imam should be pleased to see that so many of Ummah have come for Hajj. And Imam al-Islam said, Naam, فَكَثُرَ الْعَجِيجِ وَقَلَّ الْحَجِيجِ. Noise, of course, is too much. Hajis are very few. What you hear is the noise. And then Imam al-Islam kept his hand on his eyes, and as the hand was removed, he saw people around Khaneh-Kaaba. Some were like pigs and some were like dogs, various animals shouting, very few human beings. Naturally, he was shaken. Imam al-Islam said, you sometimes, when you come to such places, you assume this shape. You pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when you die, your spirit does not assume the shape of a. And thus the Ghaib has written another story there also, for which I cannot relate because it is really something very frightening. Or whoever wants to read may read that if that is the way one turns to become, may Allah save us. So there is that life which is called the life of Barzakh, before we finally go to the day of judgment. This life of Barzakh is between here and the Yawm al-Qiyamah. And it is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that Barzakh itself is a definite stage between life here and the day of Qiyamah, during which you will enjoy the fruits of your deeds. Isa ibn Maryam, salamullah alayhi, the prophet, was passing from the grave. Hazrat Isa alayhi salam, because of his nubuwwah, could see. He could see fire coming out, the flames coming out of the grave. He said, Ya Allah, I seek refuge from you from such things. He went away. As he came back and passed by the same grave, he found that there was no fire. He said, Ya Allah, alhamdulillah, you have forgiven him. He said, yes, but I have forgiven him in Barzakh. I have forgiven him in Barzakh. How? He said, because his son went to the madrasa and he was taught Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim in Suryani language, not Arabic. The meaning was Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. He was taught Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I forgave him because his son is now reading Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. When you send your child to madrasa, we consider that this is a pastime. It is not a pastime. When for the first time your child, however young, will say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, it is a guarantee, inshallah ta'ala, that after our death, whenever they will come at the grave, that thawab will help us and save us from adhab. Barzakh has a meaning. If Barzakh had no meaning, there was no need to do this Chalismu Majlis. There was no need to read Yasin or even Fatiha. There was no need even to raise hands and to pray for him, marhum. But because Barzakh has a connection with us, that is the reason why we remember him. With all the best of acts, inshallah ta'ala, the thawab reaches there, and not only reaches there. Namaz-e-Wahshat. Namaz-e-Wahshat is for the marhum who is buried on that day. Once the day has passed, there is no namaz-e-Wahshat. And there is a namaz-e-Wahshat for the person who is in your country or whose death has occurred while you are there, or you have heard the fresh news. There is no ghaib namaz-e-Wahshat. Our Sunni brothers have got ghaib namaz-e-Wahshat. That means whether they know of somebody's death or not, they read one. You see, lage to tir, there's a tukko. Anyone who dies, if he is dead, he will get the thawab. We can't do this. You must be sure who is dead. Right? And then we read, after the namaz, there is a dua. Ya Allah, whichever language you say, Allahumma ba'ath thawaba hatayni rak'atayn ila qabri fulan ibn fulan. Send the thawab of these 2 rakats to the grave of so and so. There is a connection. We have one of our great ulama whose tafsir, of course, we have tafsir Majma'ul Bayan. Majma'ul Bayan is a tafsir which has been copied by even Imam Fakhruddin Razi. Majma'ul Bayan is the original tafsir of ours. Fakhruddin Razi, Tafsir Kabir, is a copy of Majma'ul Bayan, of course, with illustration. Because Fakhruddin Razi was also a philosopher. But the basis of his tafsir is Majma'ul Bayan by Shaykh Tabrasi. There is no tafsir like that. It solves so many problems. And it gives you an idea that without knowing Arabic language, to do tafsir of Quran is a sin. Arabic language in its perfection, not just Karawi Bazar, no. Not Arabic of Souk. Arabic language in classic. For every fatha and kasra, and every tanween in Quran has a meaning. Right? So, it is by Sheikh Tabashi. Sheikh Tabashi died. He did not die. It was in Yunan trib, which is called sakta. Sakta means sometimes something within the artery somewhere blocks temporarily and a man falls off. But he's not dead yet. We have to wait. Sometimes as they thump the chest, the man comes back. Sometimes that particular thing which is blocking the artery moves. The man sees. It has happened many times. Of course, I have seen one, but I did not stay there. I ran away. Because we people are not afraid of the living people. We are afraid of dead people. Especially if the dead becomes alive again. We know that he is going to take all the revenge that so far, you see. But he stood up, of course. Now he came back. That is the hukm ilahi. This, he died. He was an old man. He was about 70. He died and they hurriedly gave him ghusl. And after having him ghusl, they gave him kafan and they buried him. When they buried him inside, he woke up. Under tons of soil. Now what can he do? He writes in his own life that I woke up to see myself. La ilaha illallah. There's no room, no possibility of coming out because it's not a small room. I'm in Lahad. On the Lahad there is a plank of wood. And so I said, Ya Allah, I'm going to die now with suffocation. But if you save me from this, and you can if you wish. Allah. There is a dua which says, Ilahi, kayfa ad'uka wa anta ant. وكيف أقطع رجائي منك كيف أدعوك وأنا أنا وكيف أقطع رجائي منك وأنت أنت. Oh Allah, how may I call you? Well, I know who I am. But how can I cut off my hopes while I know who you are? كيف أقطع رجائي منك وأنت أنت. So the man, although he knew that he was going, he said, Ya Allah, if you wish, if I came out of this grave alive, I will write Tafsir al-Quran. And Alim himself, Mujtahid. Now in those days there were people who used to hunt for fresh graves. You see, they used to come to Qabristan at night and see fresh grave because they would be stealing kafan chor. Those people were called kafan chor. They would open the grave, take the kafan, leave the dead body there and go. Now you find it surprising, but there was a booming trade called kafan chor. They'll come again and sell at 10 more. Mafat kafan jo hai, 2 rupiya ma de do. And so they would go to the mosques and sell kafan. Kafan belonged to somebody whose body is naked. Right at that time, a kafan chor enters the grave. And as he's trying to dig, he hears somebody's digging, And he says, Ya Allah, few minutes, I can't breathe, I can't breathe. Suddenly the plank of wood was lifted. When the plank of wood was lifted and he stood there, the kafan chor died immediately because there was no question of he being able to sustain this. He died on instance. And he stood up with his kafan, did not know what to do. He looked at the man is dead. Now he did not realize that the man had come to steal. He thought the man actually had come to help. So gradually he walked home. When he came home, no one was prepared to receive him. Abu Tayyib said, because we have just buried him. How can this come back? They all looked at him and they shut the door. He said, Baba, I am alive, I have come back. Nobody allowed him in. After some time, when neighbors came in and all that, they heard his story, they allowed him in. And as he came back, he said, Baba, before anything else, go and bury that man in my grave. He gave him kafan, for otherwise the body will decay. He died, poor fellow. And then he started writing Majma'ul Bayan, which is in 5 volumes. We have got this tafsir, which is called Tafsir Majma'ul. Not everybody is so lucky, my friends. You see, most of us go there. Wassalamu ma adrak. That world is not of amal. The world of amal is here. And let us understand this, that in Islam we have been given this opportunity to reach that sort of perfection by our a'mal. Gradually, as we go on refining ourselves, we become what we should become gradually with our a'mal. And when we part, the body is to decay. It's not important. What we have become out of the body, inshallah ta'ala, will help us in the next world. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq. More of barzakh. What happens at barzakh? How much we can save ourselves at barzakh and before qiyamah, and then qiyamah, and then hisab, inshallah, in later lectures. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.